viewers, welcome to another edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime TV. This evening we're going to be looking at the outing of one of South Africa's former presidents, THABO Mbeki, who describes African leadership as having failed the African Union. We must note that over the years, African leaders have been consistently blasted for not empowering and effectively living up to the expectations to see a vibrant African Union, which actually intervenes and take care of the interests of the continent. Many of them are accused for not respecting democracy in their respective countries, thereby sabotaging the effectiveness of the African Union. Many also are not paying their annual dues, as well as enforcing crisis across the continent. What would account for this lukewarm attitude of African leadership, according to South Africa former President Thabo Mbeki? We're going to be looking at this topic with some panelists who are with me in the studio. Dr. Michael Dimacho is in the house with us. He is a lecturer with some universities in Cameroon. Good evening. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. It's a pleasure to be here. Greetings to all Cameroonians and to all Africans as we talk unity, the African unity, of course. The African independence also was also built on the issue of unity, and that is why when we talk the African Union, we talk Pan-Africanism, and one of the tenets of Pan-Africanism was unity for all African states. And if today the unity has been fragilized, then there is actually something that is happening that needs to be dissected and to give proposals for Africa to move forward. Good evening, thanks for inviting me.
Derek is also part of tonight's edition of the program. He is a key member of Cameroon Civil Society. Good evening, we're glad to have you.
Good evening, Mr. Kum Leonard, and good evening to Dr. Ndimacho. It's a pleasure to share the platform with level-headed members and talking about the African Union, from the organization of African Union to African Union.
Organization of African Unity.
Yes, unity. African Unity to African Union. It's something we need to talk about, given that it is a place, it is a house that the future of Africa ought to have been discussed, but unfortunately Africans and their citizens have been slaughtered in that very house. And to all the televiewers of Prime Hour, we hope that we are going to do justice to this very topic.
Okay, we are very ready to do justice, according to Mr. Derek. Andin Atemibako is supposed to be part of tonight's edition of the program. He is a Pan-Africanist caught in traffic, as he tells us. We know that it's very difficult to move from the Bonaberi end of the town over to where we are. And also Mr. Stanley Fongot should be on I don't know, through Skype. I don't know whether it's connected. He's going to be participating from the United States of America. Okay, I'm told he's not yet connected, but I'll start with you, Dr. Michael Dimacho, African Organization of African Unity to AU. Can Africa actually boast of an organization that seeks and meets the aspiration of the people living within the African continent?
Mr. Liu, your question takes me to start from the middle. I'm starting from the middle in 2018, during the organization, the celebration of 50 years of the African unity. You know, the African Organization of African Unity started in 1963, and in 2018 they celebrated the 50 years of that organization, even though it changed from the Organization of African Union, the OAU, to AU, which is the African Union, in 2002. And in 2018, I remember it was Madame Nzoma Dilabmi of South Africa, who was the chairperson of the African Union, and she read a very, very pathetic speech, and she titled her speech "An Imaginary Letter to Kwame Nkrumah." And if you should understand why she titled that letter an imaginary letter to Kwame Nkrumah, which she laments that the African heads of state did not listen to Kwame Nkrumah. And Kwame Nkrumah is so monumental when we talk about the AU now, because you know that he is the one who spearheaded the creation of the African Union, of the OAU, the Organization of African Unity, in 1963. And remember that during that period, division has already started. When Nkrumah was with his group in Monrovia in 1962, I think, when they were organizing for that union, there was another group that was led, which was called the Casablanca group, led by Sedat Senghor. And you already see that from the onset, even though they were talking about independence of African state, unity and all that, they were already fragilized and in terms of unity, even though it is the Nkrumah group bloc that won, because that won with the creation of the African Organization of African Unity in 1963. But then, going down the line, you realize that Africa has had a very, very bleak past. In such a way that we see African states to be those states, or African nations to be those nations that have fought almost alone, and that we have not really seen the action of the OAU or the AU as it started in 2002, involved in the internal wranglings, involved in the crisis, involved in the wars that have plagued most African countries. And therefore, it gives reason for some people to think that it is almost about the survival of the fittest in Africa. Remember that when Mandela went to the United States of America, I think that was in something like 1996, 1996, 1997, when he wanted to thank, in his speech, he thanked those who helped South Africa come out of apartheid. And one of the countries that he listed was Libya with Gaddafi, and another country that he listed was Cuba with Fidel Castro. And he went under some kind of criticism from international media, the CNN and the BBC and all that. They are saying that all of these countries that you have listed are the countries that we consider them to be autocratic, to have autocratic leaders, to be dictatorship. And Mandela looked at them and laughed and said, do you never always think that in life your enemy is my enemy? What does this say? He says that, because from this speech, I didn't hear Mandela mention anything like the OAU or the AU. Because at that time it was the OAU, and we thought that, a kind of a speech of that caliber that Mandela made, and knowing what South Africa went through apartheid. We remember great men like Steve Biko with his black consciousness, those who fought very hard with their ideology of unity and anti-racist songs that they sang in South Africa against the apartheid regime. And we would have thought that the OAU would have implicated itself very much in the issues of apartheid, which they didn't. Now, you go now around, you see that Africa has also been fragilized by wars. And you see that these wars will have no implications of the African Union. Now, we have blocks around Africa, the CEMAC, the West African bloc, and all of those blocks that are even getting more stronger than the African Union, because they have realized that the African Union is only by name. Now, coming to the internal organization of the African Union, African Union has three main organs. The African Union has the Pan-African, Pan-African Parliament. That's one organ. It has the AU Commission. That's another organ, and it has the African Court for Peoples and Human Rights. These are the three organs of the African Union, and we would have thought that these organs, at least the Pan-African Parliament, will have had some powers, habilitated powers, to be able to carry out some meaningful reforms in Africa, but they have never been given. We'll have also thought that the African Union, even though sometimes we think that the chairperson of the African Union has power, it virtually has no power, no veto power over unlike the EU, the European Union. The European Union also has the European Parliament, and it has the European court and whatsoever. But they actually have powers that can be able to, to veto people or to get countries submit to what they want. But we look at the African Union, it appears as if it is survival of the fittest in the African Union, whereby each president actually, it seems to be very, very independent, and nobody commands any other president anything, because we have seen that from the crises that have happened. We have seen Africans, after getting more implicated, African presidents getting more implicated in crisis out of Africa than the crises are in Africa. You remember the Charlie Hebdo in France some years back, where you found African president who went and rather cried more than they believed in France. You remember in 2023 with the African president who were led by Cyril Ramaphosa. They were in Moscow, and they were in Kyiv in Ukraine. They went to broker peace in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. And people were not asking questions. Africa is beset of wars. Africa is beset of crisis. Why is it that the African Union cannot come out with a stand to actually say that this is actually what they think that should happen in different countries? So when THABO MBEKI comes out with a statement or with this kind of a discourse that he has come out, he knows exactly what he's talking about, because we have had some presidents who think that they can treat directly with the other foreign countries. Of course, we already have the African Union that is being sponsored by foreign countries. It's sponsored first by the European Union. The African Union is being sponsored by China and by other countries. And therefore, African presidents think that they can treat directly with these other foreign bodies and countries. That is why you find in most cases they organize a China African conference, the US African conference, the Russia African conference, and you find African presidents going there in disparate ways. They go there in assorted. They don't go there as if they are going under a union. And this has further fragilized the peace and unity that Africa sought for. African Union was built on what they call Pan-Africanism. And Pan-Africanism sought to unite Africa, sought to bring peace, sought to fight against neo-colonialism, fight to bring the African head of state together to be able to broker for peace. But this has failed.
Can an African nation today faced with problems say, okay, they have an umbrella organization called the African Union, which is going to intervene either by providing humanitarian needs or actually coming in to stop a conflict? Is it possible today?
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo. The African Union, born in 2002, taking over from the Organization for African Unity, its vision was very clear to have African unity, peace, and economic transformation. But what we see today is far from what was the initial plan of that house, of that organization. And we will not, that's one of the political failures that the African Union has failed to address. Remember the key founders, people like Gaddafi, after they were killed, people who interfere in Gaddafi's killing, it was not the immediate African Union, it was NATO, which means that the African Union is by itself a toothless bulldog. We have seen the crisis in Cameroon, we have seen the crisis in Sudan, and we have seen the African Union. They are so good in speech making. When they gather together, they come out with communique, but these communiques are not followed up. So why are they failing? They are failing because they have a very weak team. They have a weak team. They are full of speeches but zero enforcement. They make a lot of nice speeches but they don't enforce anything. And another reason we cannot guarantee that if there is a problem in Africa, the African Union will come into action is because, first and foremost, when there is a problem, African Union does not raise funds to solve its problem. The first thing when they have a problem is that they write to their sponsors, they write to their donors. Statistics have shown that African Union is being sponsored 70% by budget from maybe the European Union or from China. And you do not expect that somebody who pays for your house, when somebody pays for your house, it's difficult for you to make noise. So African Union and its leaders cannot make noise, because those who are donating for the construction or for the running of African Union are all foreigners. So they don't have any right to shout. Also, you will know that African Union has a lot of leadership crises, from aging to visionless leaders, sit-tight presidents across Africa who do not carry whose prior objective is to protect power rather than protecting the people. So you will know that it is quite difficult to solve a 21st century problem with the 80s mentality. And that is why, in the words of Patrice Lumumba, he says that those who have the knowledge, those who have the intelligence, do not have power, and those who have the power, those who have the power do not have intelligence. And I will add that they don't even have shame, and that is why African Union is like a meeting where at the end of a year the leaders sit together to decide what, or to talk about the benefits they have gotten from the sponsor and how they should share it.
Okay.
And most of the leaders who man the African Union are afraid of losing their powers rather than losing the people. Because if you had leaders in the African Union who are more people-centered than position.
Quand chaque anniversaire est une occasion de célébrer la fidélité, Orange est là pour célébrer ses 25 ans avec tous les Camerounais. Pour l'occasion, de nombreux lots à gagner. Des voyages à gogo, smartphone dernier cri et plein d'autres surprises. Vite, souscris à Orange Bonus au dièse 111 étoile 1 dièse ou rends-toi sur Maxit. Cumule les points et tente de gagner les super lots. Orange est là.
We see virtually nothing from the African Union. We hear more from the regional blocs who are struggling to enforce democratic principles.
Yes, of course, Mr. Liu, you should understand that it is from this, one of the things that we have always talked about is that there is this framework called the Constitution, the rules and regulations that govern an organization of the African Union, that sometimes are put there just for fancy or for gallery. It's just like in most autocratic or dictatorships that people put a constitution just to let the world know that, okay, it's a democratic country. And I must tell you that it was inspired, or Barack Obama was inspired by what is happening in the African Union when he came to Africa, and he made the famous speech which he indicated that we do not need strong people but strong institutions. That was inspired from the African Union, if people do not know, because we realize that the African Union has a very, very beautiful charter on freedom and all of those. They even have organs that are so beautiful framed. Imagine, I talked about the organs such as the Pan-African Parliament and the EU Commission, which of course are very, very powerful organs that were supposed to be habilitated with the powers, with the veto powers. They are supposed to plant these powers in them, nurture them, mature them, and we see this flourish and we see this happen. We see this take effect in Africa, but then all of these are only in papers, and sometimes we have the tendency to blame even the chairperson of the African Union because we think that he is a kind of the commander of what is supposed to happen in the African Union, but he doesn't have the powers. And that is why I don't know whether that was it was still in THABO MBEKI's kind of a discourse where he talked about a colleague coming to Cameroon to broker peace, and then they were surprised to see that he was rather ruled a red carpet and he walked on, and just the kind of welcome, the heroic welcome with the pomp and pageantry that he was given actually led him to condescend to perhaps who doesn't want to be welcome, who doesn't want to be heralded as a king. And that was indirect, for people who do not know, that was meant for Musa Mahatma, because he was the chairperson of the African Union at the time, and he came to Cameroon, and that was mediatized because he was coming to broker peace regarding the Angfung crisis. But when he came, we didn't get the aftermath. So this is what is happening, that in Africa and in the African Union particularly, you have all of these beautiful laws that have been crafted. You have some of these, principles that have been put in place that are supposed to be respected. But then, how do you differentiate it? A lion who is, whom we know that is a king of the jungle, and in the jungle itself would hate the jungle, and then he tend to be a kind of a lamb. That condescends, or that actually goes into negotiation because of his weakness, and so that is what is happening in the African Union, that the African Union is ruled each year by strong people, people who in their own countries do not promote democracies. And I ask myself, and it is we are very careful, how do you come to promote democracy at the head of the African Union? Because people will ask you question, what you put at the African Union will be what will implemented in your countries, and nobody wants that to be implemented in their own country. So of course, this still makes us believe that Africa is not yet ripe, it's not yet of age, because the issue of democracy, as I was telling somebody the other day, still remains an issue that is far-fetched to us, because you cannot live democracy in dictatorship, you cannot live democracy in capitalism. You cannot live a democracy in patriarchalism. So those are some of the issues that democracy is still very, very wanted. And this African president, they too believe that they have their way in which they have the role, and that when you are the helm of the African Union, it is to create channels of partnership with the individual countries of the world. It is to constantly live by the pleadings, let me call it that way, by the demands of the sponsors of the African Union. And we will not fool ourselves. The African Union is like a baby that is still being fed by the mouth, and anybody who is chosen to head the African Union as a president is chosen as a babysitter. And you know that you cannot be chosen as a babysitter and then you go there and you give hot food to a baby who still need to take but milk or pap. So that is what is happening. So those who go there, knowing that they still live in the house of the master, the house of the parents of that baby, because that very house in Addis Ababa, the African Union structure, is a structure that is built by China. And this we must know, and that the sponsorship that you get from there comes from the foreign country, from the European Union, from China, and from other countries. And therefore, if you go there and want to bring your own narrative, then you'll be left, because the African president are those who go behind and negotiate their own contracts, and the outside world has none. That is why you will not hear that there is a meeting, a summit of USA or African Union, or Russia African Union, or China African Union. It is a summit of China Africa, and that Africa means what? It means the individual president, because all the presidents, they go to China. And that is what happens, because each person, it is like a meat, a slice of meat, where each person wants to go and slice his or hers and bring back to his own individual country. So the issue of unity in Africa is still very, very wanting, because Africa is coming from very far. Africa comes from a situation whereby they have learned to fight alone, where we have had coup d'etats in different countries, and people have not said anything. We had coup d'etats in different countries. We have coup d'etats in Burkina Faso and other countries, and the African Union doesn't come in. And therefore, these countries now believe that they can be able to do it alone. And so, the African Union in itself, if it isn't pronounced in what was happening, means that there is nothing you can do. Look at the Sahel states that is cropping up now, and now it is even defying the West African bloc. So it is a lot to be desired about the issue of the African Union. It now remains at the level of the name, and we think that the original idea of Kwame Nkrumah in 1963 to bring out this, and remember he made a famous statement, let us unite now before the new colonialists come back and bring us and divide us and bring us to pieces. These are the statements that he did. And you realize that African Union is not living by the words and by the principles of the founders. And again, Nkrumah Nkrumah, who himself said the independence of Ghana is meaningless until all the other African nations are independent. So you see that it is actually a dream that has been dashed into the wall, and that those who have cropped up now as the African leaders, they have cropped up now out of egoism. And this is what Pan-Africanism sought to actually, dismantle. Those who come now are corrupt, and this is what Pan-Africanists aim to dismantle. Those who come now are self-centered. So those are some of the issues that we stand to pronounce, to criticize, and the African Union is supposed to sit straight to be able to look at these things in their very eyes. You remember that when we even look at the level of ideologies, where after Pan-Africanism, there's a new ideology that came up from literal writers who actually joined hands, and what the root, even up to now, is a literature of revolt. Because they are revolting against who? They are revolting against those African leaders who promise the people love, who promise the people unity, who promise the people economic development, but who themselves have come out and become more corrupt than those from whom they took power. And this is actually what is happening in the African Union today, and I think that it is a new story to tell.
Yeah, Africa actually is living so many crises. There is an ongoing crisis in Cameroon. We know what is happening in other parts of Sudan. Is in crisis for over 3 years now. We know of what is happening in Somalia. We see rather foreigners coming in to see how to fix what is happening in Africa, while the African Union only shies to give to make pronouncements on what is happening. Even backdoor in Central African Republic, we saw the French military move in, and also we saw the Russian military. As far as the Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger are concerned, we see Russia playing a very big role. Where is the African Union?
Yeah, that is where our worry comes in, because like I said from the beginning, the African Union is a big dreams. It has a big dream, but with small results. And the reason for the big dreams with small result is because African Union is mounted by people who think more about themselves than the people they are to represent. Earlier, the original objective of African Union was first to unite Africa and empower Africa economically, socially and politically. But today as we speak, it is easier for people to import goods and services from China than to import from Ghana, Nigeria and other countries. It only shows that even those who are mounting the stage are not helping. It is different from, like, as it stands, our importation rate within Africa is still at 17%. Different from the EU, where they have it above 60%. And in 2022, Mr. Leo, there was the birth of the, if I remember well, the African Intercontinental Area of Free Trade, whose objective was to make sure that Africans can trade within themselves, travel within themselves, without bottlenecks. It started with a lot of fanfare and pomp, but today the AfTag is still maybe at around 15% accomplishment. And it goes ahead to tell you that the African leaders seems to be visionless, because if Africa comes together, we are going to have the largest union. If Africa has to come together to form that union, we are going to have the largest union in the world. But because we are teleguided and so self-centered, you will realize that when people go there, the best we can have is well-written communiques without follow-up, and even the sponsorship budget that the African Union is supposed to run on the African nations are not contributing. That is why, as it stands now, above or 70% and above sponsorship budget of the African Union is from the West. And how can we have economic freedom when even our union runs on large money?
What stops the African Union to intervene for, say, the crisis in Sudan? People have been killed, properties are destroyed for 3 years and ongoing. The African Union is watching. In Somalia, we've had wars out there for decades now. The Anglophone crisis is still ongoing. Other areas.
You know,
look at what is happening in the TRC,
yes,
Democratic Republic of Congo.
Mr. Liu,
the African Union is there.
When people like THABO MBEKI speak, we know that they are speaking from the house. Those are people who are speaking from the inside. There are people who have been with the African Union. They know what is happening. What she said, what THABO MBEKI said, is just a reminder of what Africans are seeing. Our leaders, or African leaders, have sold their citizens for as cheap as their pocket. Because where we are, when we talk about the poverty of Africa, it is not like Africa is poor. Africa itself is not poor. What is happening is that our leaders have taken our money, invested it in foreign countries, invested it in the Swiss bank, then carry an empty suitcase of poverty to Africa. Because if we ask ourselves, I stated clearly at the beginning that when the brains like Gaddafi, when Gaddafi was killed, remember his last word, that Africa was going to weep. The West wanted him down. And when he was killed, those who intervened, it was NATO, not the African Union. The African Union watched someone came from the background, killed their patriot, and left freely. And when we ask ourselves, why is African Union failing to intervene in crises like the Sudan, the Anglophone crisis, Somalia, and all the like? It is because our leaders don't really care. As long as they will have a meeting, share the money, and nobody will be cheated, those who die, the citizens who die, they don't really care. Because Africa, as we stand, we have the resources, we have the youth, we have the manpower, but we are suffering. And it is not because we are poor, it is because our leaders are poor. We have very nice leaders in suits without sense. We have very nice leaders who put on suit, but they are not sensible and they are not inclined to their population. They don't really care if we die, as long as their pockets are swelling. I will say, in summary, that it is the lack of willpower and the fact that our aging leaders don't really care. They are more concerned about protecting their power, protecting their seat, protecting their presidency, than protecting the interest of the people who put them there.
Okay. These guys are still caught in traffic. That is why they're still not here. Let's take a typical case of the M23 in the DRC. They enter a sovereign state and are doing what they are doing, and the African Union is helpless.
Mr. Dio, the African Union, of course,
is it that the president? Is it that the presidents cannot come together and take a position, even mobilize forces to move into the DRC to say we want an end to this?
It's just like a previous question you asked, and I wanted to come in there to say why the African Union is so weak as it is. And I'm taking from the statement of Musa Mahamat in last year, 2024, when he was preparing to leave power. He regretted and he accused the African heads of state for weakening the African Union, or African Commission as it is. And he said in 2001, 2002, 2023, 93% of the Commission's decisions were not executed because the African heads of state kept it down. That tells a lot. That tells a lot. Because now you see that the African heads of state seem to be understanding themselves in issues of, corruption, in issues of, selfishness, egoism, and all of those. You asked a question about the DRC. The DRC is a vast nation. It's a very, very vast nation. And there is always this question of asking, even when you go, a lot of people have been asking why the DRC, even the president himself, cannot protect the people. Well, it's quite a very, very complicated issue, because there is what we call the sovereignty of each and every nation. And if African presidents are those that are egoistic, they will not allow bodies like the AU to come into the
country. Look at what is happening in Europe.
Exactly. Now, what is happening in Europe, and I was comparing it very vividly, is that you have the European Union that has habilitated the European Parliament and the European Commission, because they have the same as the African Union. They have the European Parliament and they have the European Commission. They have the powers that are needed to act. Go to the European Union and study the powers that the European Parliament and the European Commission has. They have veto power, they have strong powers to act against the member countries. But when it comes to Africa, you find that those commissions, those organs are just there for their own sake. So who is going to execute? Now, they rely more now on the sitting president to act. Meanwhile, it is not the place of the sitting president to act, just because they have premeditatedly refused. It's like giving someone a goat and holding the rope. They have given the commissions, the organs are there very beautifully, but they have refused to give the organs the strength and the powers that they need to get going. Because with the European Union, they have what we call the supranational binding powers, which, of course, is above and which has the power to act. This is what the European Union here, the African Commission is supposed to have. It's supposed to have a supranational binding powers that can act when in situations like this, but they do not have. And they only remain at the level of diplomacy, whereby people go to, if you are of the commission, you go to country and they roll you red carpets and you flow on it and they discuss and you leave. This is what is happening. You find a country like the DRC, of course, it's a very, very vast country, a big country, of course, which is very rich. And we know that one of the issues that is very, very disturbing about countries that are rich at the DRC is that neo-colonialism is still in existence, and that they keep on causing havoc, they keep on stirring the storm in the teacup in order to let people, the best way in order to rid people of their minerals and all of that for European, countries to come back is to create chaos. And we cannot refuse the fact that they have been actively involved in the chaos. We blame Rwanda for getting into Ventura, people who are coming from next door. And if Kagame is acting, he's not acting alone. This is one thing that we must understand, that these people are still coming back. Remember, even the DRC Congo, it was a very, very special Congo country after independence. And immediately after the independence, the DRC Congo, what happened is that war broke out. And the reasons that historians gave was that DRC was not prepared for independence. That is why war broke out. And since then, it has been, and you should understand, if you follow the trends and the history of that country, you will understand that it was like somebody gave back something to you and was regretting why that thing was given. They are the ones who came back to stir chaos in order, because they had discovered that it was a very rich country. And the granting of independence at that particular time was not a decision of Belgium. It was not a decision of France to grant independence of Africa. It was not a decision of Britain. It was a unilateral decision for countries to get their independence at that particular time. Okay, and therefore, they got regretted that they
are they also weakened because African heads of state are not meeting their annual financial commitments? And if these monies cannot come from the respective nations that make up the African Union, they are now relying on either the European Union or the Chinese. And if these guys are the ones are financing it, they have a greater say than the African leaders themselves. Have we sold out our powers to foreigners?
Of course, that is exactly what the African Union has done. And that is where our failure is coming from. Many African leaders, they serve power rather than purpose. if we had a purpose, and the purpose is to unite Africa, build Africa, and make Africa great, we will be better. But if we are, as an African Union, waiting for 70% of our budget to come from EU, European Union that has a union on its own, and China, then it means we do not have a say on our own. Because our African leaders, instead of prioritizing the contribution, the mineral contribution that has to come from the various states, they prefer to practice staying in power. And it has become more like a stage, AU has become more of a stage where we have a club of presidents who go to just discuss how they are dealing with their people, not how they want their people to get better. And that's when we say that when leaders fear losing power rather than fear losing the people, that is what we have. They don't really care about the citizens, they don't care about Africans, and they don't have a political will for unity. Why do I say they don't have a political will for unity? You know, unity requires a lot of sacrifice. You have to sacrifice your ego, you have to sacrifice your borders, and you have to sacrifice your personal interests. African leaders are not willing to sacrifice their ego. They are not willing to sacrifice their borders, and they are not willing to sacrifice their personal interests. They are willing, they want Africa to be united on one condition. And that condition for African unity is that most Africans want that Africans should be united in a situation where they are leaders. They want a united Africa, but they don't want to let power go. Everybody wants to be a leader. And because of this, we have the boomerang effect. We have that situation where every year the leaders sit, they talk, speak good English, speak good French, send out good communique without follow-up. And who suffers? The West are there. Remember, the process of neo-colonialism is sponsored so that we remain divided. But in the 21st century, where we are technologically advanced, we are academically advanced and intellectually advanced, we won't say that the West don't want us to unite, because unity is the will of the people. And if we decide that today we are meeting at Addis Ababa and we are talking about trade with the Western world, remember, Mr. Leo, it baffles me when our history teachers told us that the scramble for Africa started in 84. And in 84, they will tell you that one of the reasons for the scramble of Africa was because the raw materials in the West were finished. Today, Africa is still feeding the West with raw materials decades and centuries after. We are asking ourselves, why do we have the cake? Why do we have the materials? We have the oven, we have the cake, we have the bakers. We bake the cake, yet we bake the cake. It is humorous that we have everything it takes to make us better, yet we are beggars, and we come to say that the West, it is not the West that comes to tell us that we should embezzle money meant for the construction of our roads. It is not the West that refused that Dangote, after constructing his refinery, it is not the West that told Nigerians to refuse him from running with the refinery from crude oil from Nigeria. It is the big guns, it is selfish Africans who are already in the market, who do not want him to take over the manufacturing or the refinery, that are doing that. So the problem of Africa is not the West, it is Africans. It is not the West that is telling us to kill ourselves. It is our greed, it is our selfishness, and it is the fact that we lack vision for the people, and we protect our image rather than image of the country and the people that are put at our disposal.
Is this also the reason why we see the heads of state of Burkina Faso, the current heads of state of Burkina Faso, Niger and Mali are saying that, okay, we are setting up something for ourselves and giving a new direction to our people the way we deem fit. In Gabon, we saw the coup. In Guinea, we saw the coup. Is it also because the African Union actually has no force? It has no real hold on the respective nations that make up the union.
Yes, this is very important to note too, that the African Union that took, actually we can say that it is Pan-Africanism, because that is what it stands for, went out of its calling. And one of the things that we should remark is the fact that we have not been taught what we are supposed to be taught, because the African Union is like continuously pulling us to the West to make us enjoy what is of the West. Because that is what Pan-Africanism even today has come to be. It is out of the frame of what we call Pan-Africanism, as Kwame Nkrumah, they put it. Why? Because you see that at one moment we have remained in the celebration of the cultural identity. Meanwhile, the world is moving. We accept globalization, but we think that we will remain in the celebration of cultural identity. No. What African
Loyalty is key in both love and family relations. That is why it needs to be rewarded. Throughout this year, there is 500 millions to share as a reward for your loyalty. Subscribe to the OM Loyalty Program no matter your network on #150*0# or via the OM tab on Max Eat. Accumulate up to 100 points and win 10,000 francs automatically every month. And you also become eligible for other great prizes. Try your luck. You too can become a winner. We are Bango right to the end.
Pay your taxes and custom fees at Express Exchange. The solution is close to you. Enter an Express Exchange agency, head to the cash register with your tax notice, and make your payment of tax and custom fees with ease. Receive a confirmation receipt. So cool, Mula. Yes, Mula. From now on, I pay my taxes and custom fees at Express Exchange. It's simple. Express Exchange, partner of the Guild and the Directorate General of Taxation. Express Exchange, #1 in quality service in Cameroon.
All those are the only things that you import from Europe, or you go and have healing, medical care in Europe. It means that you are not standing as an African. And this is a new narrative. As you ask about the Sahel heads of state, Traoré and Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. This is a new narrative they are bringing. If you look at Mali today, one of the things that Traoré is trying to do is trying to bring back, that nostalgic memory of the culture of the give and psalm of the Marians. And he has done that through what? Through introducing the culture of the people and showing the people how they can monetize their culture. And this is what we have been deprived of. Because when we talk about celebrating the culture, what we did was we were just sleeping in the fact that, okay, this is our culture, this is our language, and we didn't know that we could monetize that culture and compete with the external world. And this was where the problem was. So now, Traoré and the others, they have come now and they're showing the people that even what you have, even Europe envies what you have. The undersoils that you have, Europe envies it. The identity that you are having. There are many people who have talked about organization that black is beautiful and all of those. Now, when you sing and say black is beautiful, we want to know how we can use all of that to monetize. And you will now see that our minds were taken to Europe. Human hair, our children were prone to buying Brazilian hair and human hairs abroad. There was the issue of the color prejudice that a lot of people have. Everybody wants to be identified with the West. And this is what our leaders have taken us into in such a way that we are prone to issues that come from the West than here. And so this new narrative is coming to let people know that your color is very important for you, and other people envy your color. By the way, the Homo sapien is from Africa, and the issue of that your hair too is beautiful, and then your culture is beautiful, and all of these things that you have locally, you can be able to monetize and put them on the world stage. In the context of globalization, and be able to compete and also come out economically, not only celebrating their identity, but that their economic identity is supposed to be portrayed. And this is what is happening. And you see that when Traore pronounces this and sees this working, look at agriculture. We are here sitting on gold and begging for gold abroad. Meanwhile, we are sitting on it. We are sitting on, we are in water and begging for water in the desert. And this is what the Sahel heads of states are trying to make Africans know, that they have all of these things.
Yeah, Mr. Leo, just to key in from where Doctor is coming from, you bear with me that it is because of the AU silence that has given rise to rebellion in Africa. Because when presidents who are elected into power change the constitution, the AU says nothing. When there's a revolution of the people, the AU, the only thing they tell you is AU calls for calm. People cannot be calm when those who are the real criminals sit with you, discuss with you, and you do nothing. So when AU fails to act, you realize that the population or the military reacts. That is why you are seeing a lot of military takeover in Africa, because African Union is dormant. They are silent and they are dead. And because of that, it is not like Africans love military rule that much. It is because those that have been put ahead to act in their favor, they are not acting. And what is happening in the form of military takeover is just a reaction. It is not an act. People are reacting from frustration. You cannot have a leadership that have a meeting place to sit, like the parliaments we have in Africa, where they sit and the only thing they discuss about is the budget, is the annual budget. They do not discuss about the annual suffering of the people. They do not discuss about the stress that the citizens, the African citizens or the country citizens are going through. They only discuss about how the budget can be increased, how much you increase in the budget, but the execution is not there.
Okay.
And when the people get frustrated and they are pushed to the wall, this is the result. African Union, like we said, a lot of people think that the African Union is useless. The African Union is not useless. It is the house that is misused. No matter how beautifully constructed a house is, if it is the people who are sitting there do not talk intelligence, do not talk wisdom that can solve the situation of the people, we feel it is used. So as it stands now, the house in Addis Ababa is misused until the right minds, people who love Africa, people who are vision bearers, who want Africa to change, they are voted and they replace that house, like the famous Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. If you have 5 of them in that house, this continent will change and the West will come begging to stay.
We are told Mr. Stanley Fongot is on standby from the United States of America. Good evening. We're glad to have you, and also happy that finally you got connected. Hello, Mr. Stanley. Hello, Mr. Stanley. We still have a technical issue to fix to get him live now. I get to you, Dr. Dimancho, the African Union. How do we get it to meet the aspirations of the people of Africa?
No, it is simple. If we want to get the aspirations of people of Africa, first we need to know from where we want to get that aspiration. If it's from at the level of the African Union, then we need to be able to give respect to actually habilitate the organs, the beautiful organs we have of the African Union, with the powers that they are supposed to have. And the first thing I've always said is we have something like the African Commission, AU Commission. It needs to be given the powers that it needs to do what it's supposed to do. We have the African Parliament. All of these things, what are they for? We see a lot of, even Cameroonian, we have a lot of some parliamentarians in Cameroon who go out and we hear they say they are of the African Union parliamentarian and whatsoever. And we ask ourselves, of what use is that? Because Africa is only living, staying at the level of diplomacy. They need to pass from talking to walking the talk. This is very, very important. And that if the African Union needs to be worth an organ, or I mean that organization, then it has to cease from being a dog that barks and cannot bite. We need to be able, we need to see that happen. We need to see an African Union be able to take a country to task, which we have not yet seen before. That you find a country that is in dictatorship and that the African Union steps in. But this can only happen when the leader himself, who is there, is clear of all of this. And this is why sometimes I always feel that the African Commission is supposed to be given more powers, because the African Union Commission is chaired by an honorary person. And therefore, if you leave a president to act in this light, there will always be that he will mingle into issues, because who is utterly clean in Africa. And therefore, they need these powers to be able to push for action, for meaningful action to do. Let us pass to action, and then we'll see that happen in Africa.
Let's see if we can get Mr. Stanley. Good evening, Mr. Stanley. You are welcome. Okay, unfortunately we stick. Okay, Mr. Stanley, good evening. Hello, Mr. Stanley. Wow. Hello, Mr. Stanley, good evening.
I wonder if you're trying to say something and the volume is very low. I can't hear anything.
We can get you, Mr. Stanley. Good evening. Well, definitely we are not lucky to have him today. Mr. Andrew Atemibako is finally here. He's been caught in traffic. Good evening. We're glad to have you, Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Kum Leonard, and my co-panelists who are here tonight, and all the viewers of our media. Thank you.
Okay. We have been talking about African leadership and the African Union. What would account for the, I don't know, the sterile nature of the African Union as far as taking decisions and getting involved in a crisis and eventually solving them in Africa is concerned?
Well, Mr. Kum Leonard, that's a very interesting question, because such as even the United Nations peacekeeping force, which have been in Africa for so many years, yet we still have all the instabilities, insecurities, and wars and conflicts all over Africa. Same as we also have the African Union in Africa, which absolutely has been doing nothing to actually unite and to build a hegemony and a synergy of all these 54 nations in such a way that Africa can be a continent that can reflect the Africans that are in the diaspora, that can build, how can I call it, that can build an environment, enabling environment for all the Africans that are out of Africa to return back to Africa, to have proper leadership in Africa, with an organization such as the African Union, which is there to seek the interests of the African people. But this is not the case, Mr. Kum Leonard, because if we remember way back in 2000 and 2001, when THABO MBEKI was the last chairman of the OAU, who single-handedly changed it to the African Union. That was at the time where the American regime was pushing terrorism around the world as in a form of a business in order to take dominance in all, especially Africa and the Middle East and most of the other nations of the world, because these are all strategies in order to control the population of the world, and to build a one system of government in which all other countries of the world can look up to one particular country or a body such as the United Nations or the UN National Security Council. So this aspect of the African Union came to Africa as another form of spy, where they are here to protect and to keep and to retain the existing treaties and arrangements of the European powers in Africa. So the African Union was never created, as a matter of fact, to serve the interests of the African people, which is why not only is it funded by the West, not only does it take instructions from the West, but it is also submitted under the United Nations. We cannot have an organization which will be protecting the interests of the African people, knowing that us as Africans have been the only race that have been abused to an extent which the human rights organizations at the level of the United Nations is unable to still grant the rights of the African people. So if we are talking about the African Union, I think that we should be looking at it as another form of an EU, another form of the UN, because these are not organizations that were meant by our founding fathers to protect and to continuation of what we have been fighting for freedom and liberty as the African people. So to me, Mr. Kum Leonard, as I said before, the African Union was not voted by the masses of the African people, therefore means that that union has to be dissolved because it has never stood. As a matter of fact, we have seen in many cases where the African Union has been against self-determination, it has been against liberation, it has been against revolution that has been in the interest of the masses that have been abused for so many years. So the African Union, as a matter of fact, we cannot say we are independent, we are sovereign, when yet the resources and the economy of Africa is not in the hands of the nationals, it's in the hands of the multinationals. What is the African Union doing? Look at Congo DRC. For almost close to 27 years, we are having the UN peacekeeping force in Congo, yet we have war, killings every blessed day, and that country is still under a colonial rule. We have African Union. What is it saying? You come to the period where Mohammed Gaddafi was assassinated in Libya. What did the African Union do? As a matter of fact, it sat quiet. When the Tigrayans were approaching Addis Ababa in the time of Abiy Ahmed, when he was pushing in a rule that was seeking the interests of his people, African Union said nothing. We go to so many other conflicts around Africa. African Union has absolutely not played its role. As a matter of fact, African Union has been a broker, as a how can I call it, a betrayer to the unification of Africa. You go to the Africans that are in the Caribbean, you go to the Africans that are in America. As a matter of fact, the African Union has been bribed heavily to prevent these Africans from coming back to Africa. As a matter of fact, the African Union organization was supposed to first, as a matter of fact, seek the interest simultaneously of the Africans at base and the Africans that are in the diaspora, that are in the Caribbean. The African Union has played such no role. In the days of a certain emperor of Ethiopia, who paid $500 billion in dollars as reparations to the slaves that were in America that were working in plantations so that they should be free. This is an individual, a single emperor, who was concerned about the Africans that were in the diaspora. So when we were talking about the African Union, when the African Union was formed, we were looking at a union that was going to protect the sovereignty of this country, of this continent, and build a one army, because it has an army which has never been engaged in any conflict which we have seen in Africa. We have seen all the rise of Boko Haram, of Al-Qaeda, of all sorts of a terrorist network in Africa that has been built, invested by the Europeans to cause instability and to protect their interests over these governments that are being instituted through democracy, through how can I call it, through colonial pacts to keep their interests. So Mr. Kum Leonard, to me, I strongly believe that it is time as Africans, they have made all of us to become soldiers. We, as a matter of fact, we do not need democracy because the African Union that is here protecting the interests of democracy, the democratic system over Africa, this is not what Africa needs. We cannot build organizations that are protecting the European interests. These are not African organizations. What we need in Africa is not the African Union, because that is just a symbol. But the content of it is the contrary, which instead divides and split the African people so that the colonial arrangements can continue to strive in Africa. So this organization has to be dissolved, as far as I'm concerned.
It has to be dissolved, but if it has to be dissolved, what happens next? Africa should stay without an organ that can permit heads of state to come together to chart a new way forward for Africa. Why don't you think that there should be a definition of some of its text?
Well, to start with, these head of states that we are all mentioning, these are not head of states that derives from the spirit of Africanism and from the spirit of the African people. These are head of states that have been appointed. These nations are nations that were carved by the Berlin Conference in order to keep Africa divided, in order to treat Africa individually as different cases, special cases, which is why all these other African countries have different currencies. They have borders. These are not what the African people put in place. This is what the Europeans enforced over the African continent. So these 54 head of states, which are the reflection of the African Union, to put it, this is a clear sign to tell you that the African Union is a colonial structure. Why? Because it is protecting these colonial borders and treaties and nations and head of states. So the kind of leaders that we need are not these such leaders that conform to the African Union or who keep the spirit of the African Union, whereby AU also has a seat in the African Union. This is not the kind of spirit of African Union that we want. We want an African Union that is birthed from the spirit of the people, of the Africans, that have gone through all this torment and hardship, that today we have become soldiers to liberate ourselves. We don't need the head of states to liberate us. They have been, for almost how many years today? 65 years they are unable to liberate their nation, not even themselves. So we cannot be depending on the African Union, talk less the head of states in Africa. We want new breeds of leaders, such as we are seeing today in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in Mali. These are the kind of synergy of leaders that Africa needs right now. So let a new breed of organization that seeks the unity of the African people, because we understand that the unification of Africa is not only about the African at base. It's about how do we bring back the Africans that are in the Caribbean? How do we bring back the Africans that are in America, the African Americans? As a matter of fact, Mr. Kum Leonard, all these political strategies that the West has been using over Africa, as far as our own generation is concerned, such organization will be dissolved in Africa, because we have come of age and we have come of understanding to understand how manipulative the West is over Africa, and building organizations, NGOs, and institutions in order to bring laws and then use organizations to again override the laws which were put in place, telling the people that they have the right to self-determination, begin building protocols and rules that takes again the rights of the people. This is what all these organizations are doing. So the same as AU. AU is here to take the rights and the sovereignty of the African people. It's not here to build the unity of the African people.
Okay. Yes, we are of where we are today. How do we get presidents that work to get a very solid, powerful African Union that can intervene and take actions in the interests of Africans?
Yes, Mr. Leo, we live in they call the generation Gen Z, and the youths are beginning to ask a lot of questions, and we must find a way to put the right people. If we have the right representative in every country, we're going to kill the border crisis. And I cited a very good example. Although Ibrahim Traore came to power through the wrong direction or military coup, but what he is doing, it shows that he has the blood, the spirit of Africanism running in him. He has the mind of his people. So if we will all rise and say no to leaders who protect their power more than the people, leaders who fear to lose their offices rather than losing the people, if we can get the right representative per nation, if we understand that if we build a block to trade within Africa, Africa within Africa, we're going to build a better Africa, then we'll get to places. A case in hand is Rwanda. Rwanda technological advancement is unmatched in Africa, because the president has taken upon himself, because Africa in reality does not need democracy. Africa needs leaders who are visionary and autocratic, who needs to change the system, and people who are African focused. The likes of late JPM, John Paul, Magufuli, those are the examples we are talking about. People who love Africa, people who love Africans, and people who want Africa to change. If all of us embrace that, like I said, maybe before the Pan-Africanists came in, the Addis Ababa house is not a useless house. The problem with the Addis Ababa house is that those who sit in there do not have the people at heart. If we have the right people sit in that house, we are going to have the right decision. Just like the EU, we are talking about being a colony. United States was a colony, but they belong, they are making decision, and they are making progress. If Africa does not come out from the colonial mentality and have a paradigm shift and a mindset shift that Africa is us and we have to build it, we will keep taking our problems and blaming the Western world, whereas I have never heard a president from the West tell the Minister of Public Works in Cameroon that do not build roads. I have never heard the president of United States of America tell the Minister of Territorial Administration that please take this money, it should be used for embezzlement. We have never heard that. And because we have never heard that, the problem of Africa stems from Africa. Until our mindset changes that we have to build Africa, make Africa great, and enjoy our Africa, so that tomorrow those from the West who want to come to Africa, they are going to go through the stress of applying for a visa to come to Africa. We will keep crying. I don't see, if Mr. Leo, if somebody goes to the embassy, the US embassy, and a visa is denied after spending money, people faint, people die, people cry. But in Africa, the whites are entering Africa every day, and they enter and live with our resources. They are not living with the resources because we are poor. We are not poor. The mentality of our leaders, the wickedness of our leaders, the selfishness of our leaders, who take money from Africa, put it in international bank, put it in the Swiss bank, is what has rendered us poor, and they bring us with suitcase of poverty.
Yes, how do we get leadership that makes African Union proud against what THABO MBEKI is saying?
But I think that we just need committed people, and these committed people should be people of new breed. And one of the things that I'll say is that when we talk about a committed person, sometimes we look at it globally. We need committed writers. We have had committed writers in Africa who have brought Africa to where they are. We had people like Wole Soyinka who went to in Nigeria. We have Ngugi wa Thiong'o who went to prison and even wrote a seminal novel, Devil on the Cross. Of course, because of his hard critics, we need committed technicians in Africa. We need committed agro economists and all that. We need to build a data. And when you build it, because some of these things we only look at the leaders. Let me tell you, leaders are who they are because of the people. When you look at the American Revolution and all of those, even when you look at the Americans, where they came up with the black racism and all of those, we took people like Rosa Parks, who are just mere people, to give people like Martin Luther the courage to keep moving. When Rosa Parks in the 19th refused to set up his seat for a white because they said this seat is only for the white, that gave a lot of courage to the people, that encourage the people and the leaders themselves. And therefore in Africa too, it's not just about the leaders. A leader is not a superhuman who will just go and change things. We, the people of Africans, as I've always said, those leaders depend on us. And that is why when you see a person like Chauri, as we are talking about here every day, when he comes out, when he comes, the people say yes, amen, Allah. When he comes out, the people gather and they are in support. This is what is pushing him. Africans, they need to rise up to build a data. Everybody needs to come on board. It's not just about, it's about artists, it's about writers, it's about technicians, it's about electricians. politician. It's about this. Everybody needs to come out to encourage a leader that we are Afrocentric, because we are talking about Afrocentrism, because this is what it's all about. When you are cultural mulattoes and you pretend that you're African, it is wrong. Cultural mulattoes, you know, of course, you believe you are African in your body, but your spirit is out of Africa. Many of them go and die in Africa. I've been one of the critics of Sédar Senghor, the president of Senegal. You know, he was one of the founders of Negritude with MSZ and Gondras, and who later died in France. I mean, you will not come and plead for us and talk about all that you are talking, and then at the end of it all, you go to die in Europe. And therefore, those community writers or those community leaders must come from the community, and for you to be chosen as a leader, because it comes from their country. Not just any leader should be chosen at a given moment to be the president of the African Union. Imagine that you choose somebody from the Sahel states at this present moment to be the president of the African Union. This is where the revolution is going to start from, because that spirit from the Sahel is going to contaminate and it's going to blow across Africa, and this is going to be another wave of Pan-Africanism, that the wind that is blowing across Africa.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Leo, and all the panel. I love your program. Akame Kingsley is watching us from Mbanga. Good evening to you, Akame Kingsley. We are going to be moving to something else this night, as most of you want to engage in business, import and export business. So this time around, I'm going to be hosting somebody who is also going to be here tomorrow and Friday to talk about a seminar that is going to take place in Yaoundé, where you can easily learn strategies of importing stuff from China and across the world, and what it takes to also export these things. Many persons are looking forward to becoming international business people. So at this point in time, we're going to be welcoming someone who will take us through what it takes to engage in this. Thank you, Dr. Dr. Michael Dimancho. We're going to continue this discussion tomorrow on Prime. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo, for having me, and thank you, the panelists. I want to say it that Africa is not poor. It is our leadership that is poor, and until we change our mindset, until we change the paradigm, until our leaders start wanting to fear losing its people rather than fear losing their image, we are not going to change. And we pray that the leadership should take over, a leadership that loves the people, that wants the people, and wants the progress of Africa as a whole.
Okay, thank you too for coming, Andrew Atemebako. You spent almost 2 hours on traffic today.
Thank you very much, the viewers of my media prime. Thank you.
Okay, and like I announced earlier on, we're going to be talking about the Global Import Mastery Institute. They are going to be talking about a master class by the Global Import Institute on mastery of importation and exportation from Cameroon, especially importation and exportation of food stuff. We're going to be talking with Mr. Nico Simon, who is with me in the studio. Good evening, Mr. Nico Simon. We're glad to have you.
Good evening, Mr. Leo, and good evening to everybody watching Prime Art today.
Okay, so you are so involved in this business of understanding what it takes to import and export out of Cameroon.
Yeah, you know, it's a very interesting business model which is really helping a lot of people, because we've seen that there are a lot of Cameroonians who are out there. They graduated from the university having very good grades. But they are not really satisfied at what they are doing right now. And we have even businessmen, businesswomen, entrepreneurs, and even some small and medium-sized companies who are struggling with capital because everything is becoming very expensive in the market. And I think that it's something which that's why the Global Import Mastery Institute came in, to see how we can help them solve this particular problem of expensive things in the market. You know, you see a Cameroonian, for example, with 500,000, and he's really looking for a kind of business that he can do with that 500,000. He's not really seeing what he can do because everything is expensive in the market. So he does not really see a profitable business he can do, and that's why we are here.
Okay. What are some of the problems faced by majority of these entrepreneurs, business men and women in Cameroon?
All right. Now, one of the main problems is the problem of inflation, because we realize that as time is passing, as years are passing, things are becoming more and more expensive in the market, and you realize that some things that maybe some 2 years ago, some 3 years ago, the same prices of a particular item in the market, that same item right now is no more the same price. A lot of things are increasing, and one of the reasons why things also increase in the market is what we call the chain of distribution, because you buy something from Mr. A, who bought from Mr. B, who bought from Mr. C, who bought from Mr. D, and when products leaves from one hand to the other, price definitely increases. So if there is a possibility for you to actually cut off the chain of distribution and have direct access to the manufacturers, you're going to realize that you're going to get these things very, very cheap. So inflation is one of the problems that is disturbing a lot of businessmen, and they are having capital, but they don't really know what they can actually get in, because everything has become expensive. And another problem that is affecting a lot of Cameroonians, a lot of businessmen watching me out there, is also the art of sales. I always tell people that it's not the best product that sells in the market, it is the best known product. Whether you're the best plumber, you're the best electrician, you're the best whosoever, if nobody knows you for what you're selling or what you're proposing, you're still going to stay broke. So we see a lot of people in the market, they are having very good products. Somebody is going to sit in front of his shop the whole day, he does not generate any sales because he does not really know how to sell. That's why sometimes I used to say, if you don't know how to sell, if you don't sell, you smell, or if you don't sell, you are going to be sold. So selling is one of, in fact, it is the number one most important skill that every businessman, every entrepreneur must sell. There is somebody, for example, selling maybe phones, and you tell him that, okay, sell me this phone. He does not really know how to even sell his own product. Like, he does not even know how to explain what he's selling. And this is what is affecting a lot of people. And people just think that business is all about venturing into looking for capital and starting, whereas that's not the most important thing.
So what I get from you is the fact that we lack knowledge.
Exactly.
We are ignorant. Almost everybody is passionate about engaging in business. They dream of becoming big business tycoons, but do not know what it takes. Fundamentally, they also have not developed this culture or knowledge that they need to sit down somewhere and learn some of the steps.
Yeah, that's why even the Bible says that my people perish because of lack of knowledge. The Bible did not say that my people perish because they lie too much, or because they steal too much, or because of whatsoever reason, because of lack of knowledge. And that's one of the reasons why we see a lot of people doing business for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but they are still on the same spot. They are not growing. Is it that we start businesses because we want to stay on the same spot? No. Everybody starts a business with the having that wish to actually grow. But now we cannot grow if we don't have the knowledge on what it takes for us to grow. So there is a difference between starting a business and having the ability to grow the business. And that's why you need to invest in your knowledge in sales, invest in your knowledge in entrepreneurship, invest in your knowledge in marketing, invest in your knowledge in so many other aspects. For example, a car, it does not take only an engine for a car to move. We have an engine, we have the steering, we have the tires, we have so many components. That's how business is. If you want your business to move, there are so many components that you must put in place for that business to move. And that's why we are here, to help those who are actually having that problem.
Okay, you are organizing a masterclass in Yaoundé?
Yeah, we are organizing a mega e-commerce and digital marketing masterclass. Now, I want to first of all explain how we do to solve the problems of inflation and sales. Now, we realize that since the things are expensive, we are going to connect you with international, main manufacturers in China, because China is actually the cheapest place or the cheapest country in the world as of now. And when you do your research, you realize that in 2023, China celebrated 3 million factories and Africa celebrated 3 million bars. And now between 2023 and 2025, China is now at 6 million factories. So the place is really, really growing. So we are going to help you, connect you with the main manufacturers materials in China, whereby anything you want to buy, you can get them very, very cheap. I used to show some products that I buy, even in my office, a product that I used to buy in Douala for 4,000 francs to resell at 5,000, whereas that same thing, I now buy that same thing in China for 90 francs and resell at the same 5,000. There is another hand cream I realized that they sell here for 1,105. That same hand cream, I am buying it in China 12 francs and reselling at 1,000 francs. So there are a lot of things in China that we are going to be showing you how you can access them, even start up your own brand. And during this digital marketing conference, we are also going to teach you how to use your phone or use your laptop to generate sales, because they say the world has become a global village. But what's the meaning of a global village? That means everything you can actually do with the use of your phone or your laptop. And this does not need you to go to the highest schools in the world. You just need to understand how these things work, and that's why we are here to show you how can you use your phone. For example, I import products, in fact a lot of products from China. Like every month I must import at least twice. But now I don't have a physical shop where I sell these things, but I build everything online, and I spend less than somebody who rents a shop for 1 year, pays or some kind of, you know, all these kind of useless expenditures. But from the comfort of your home, you can do a business that generates you millions per month. And that's why we are here. We organize that conference on Sunday at 2:30 p.m. in Yaoundé at Salle de Fête Saint John in Mendong. Now, this conference is going to gather experts from all over. We are going to have experts from China, experts from South Africa, and even Cameroon, who are going to come for this program. And we are expecting people to come from all the 10 regions of Cameroon. So even if you are watching, you are not in Yaoundé, just prepare your program, because it is going to be a one-time lifetime international opportunity which you will not want to miss. Now, the conference is 10,000 francs CFA to attend, but I'm going to give access to the first 10 people who are going to contact the numbers they are seeing on their screen below. They are going to have free access for the conference, because we are here today. So the first 10 people to send interested either on WhatsApp, SMS, or they call the number on their screen, okay, they are going to have free access to attend this conference.
Okay. What is the capital needed to start your import business? For those who may want to engage in importation of foodstuff.
Yeah, a lot of people think that importation is something that they need high capital or huge capital to get started. No, I started my journey with 57,000. A lot of people are actually shocked, but I was buying a product in China that cost 620 francs, and I realized that in Cameroon they are selling that same thing for 25,000, and I decided to sell it at a wholesale price for 20,000. Now I bought 50 pieces. 57,000 was enough to buy plus ship, because we are going to connect you with international freight agents, which they will take your products from China to your town, whether you're in Kumba, you're in Bamenda, wherever. They will take your product and send to where you are. So we are going to connect you with agents that they want to pay custom, you pay transportation, which becomes very, very cheap. So with 57,000 I started. Now you can start even with 10,000, because there are, for example, the product I said that costs 12 francs. There are some other products for 50 francs, 100 francs. With 10,000 francs, a student, somebody who is struggling, can actually get started. So with as little as 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100K, you can get started in your importation journey. And it's not only about importation. We also have to precise that we also do exportation of foodstuff, because that's another industry that is really, really giving a lot of money.
We're going to talk about that. Just
okay.
Yes. You're explaining about the capital. You don't need so much money.
No, you don't need too much money, because I started with little capital, which is 57,000 francs CFA. That's the honest amount I started with, and I've seen people starting with 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. So many of my students. So it is because people have the mindset that importation is for rich people or people who have access to huge amount of money. No, nowadays it is possible to do everything with a little amount of money. It is only for those who may want to start their personal brands that they may need millions. But if you want to start as a normal business person, like I started before getting into creating my personal brand, with 57,000 I started. You can start even with lesser than that, because I have discovered products that are way cheaper than what I even bought. So you don't need too much money to get started.
Okay, tell us more about the foodstuff exportation in Cameroon. Is it quite lucrative?
Yeah, it's extremely lucrative, because if you have brothers who are living, if there are people from the diaspora watching us right now, they're going to attest to the fact that African foodstuffs are very, very expensive out of the country. Now, if you look at countries like Canada, the US, China, in fact, all these countries, those Africans or our brothers who travel to these places and they want to eat African foodstuff, they spend a lot and a lot of money. I always say that every problem is an opportunity for me as an entrepreneur. Now, we realize that if we can have access to international buyers who can buy African foodstuffs from us in Cameroon, because they say Cameroon is Africa's in miniature, that means everything we can get in any other country in Africa, we can get in Cameroon. So it is a very lucrative business, because why? For example, the yam that you buy here very, very cheap, that same yam is sold in Canada about ×5 the same amount of money that you use to buy that same thing. The what they call janga, these crayfish, snails, all these things, white pepper, all these things are things that are extremely expensive out of the country. Now, imagine that you can have access to supermarkets, African supermarkets in Canada, in Dubai, in China, all of these countries who want you to deliver these things. We are going to show you how you can become a dropshipper. When I mean dropshipping, I mean a middleman. So you don't have access to the products, but we teach you how to have access to local manufacturers or local suppliers of these things that you can get from them, and you send to your international clients, and you are actually selling but in dollars, because when you actually export, you are selling either in dollars, in pounds, or other foreign currencies, which makes more sense. So imagine that you get a client who gets maybe an order for $5,000 for maybe arrow, for example, dried arrow, or even pap, because that's another interesting business, or oil, anything. Okay, now with the $5,000, he's going to send 40% of that money to you to actually send him the product. Now, the truth is that with the 40%, it is enough to buy everything and export to that your client. So when you send the product, the rest of the 60% is still your profit. But guess what? You are not the one who bought the product. You are not the one, in the farm producing that product. Should in case you are not the producer, you are not the one in the farm producing, just like what we do. So we are going to be showing you all of these things. And the good thing is that you can also start with a little capital. Now, why do we do import and export? Because when we teach you import, we can help you get customized branding or customized packaging, from manufacturers in China. And when you want to export your goods, you export in branded packaging, which makes a lot of sense. So foodstuff exportation is an amazing industry which everybody can get started as long as you are very serious, and that's why we still encourage you to send us interested on WhatsApp, SMS, or call the number below your screen, or I'm going to call. Can
you just give me the number? So okay. Many of them are writing to me.
Let me give the number. Yeah. 653.
1 minute. 653. Yeah.
89.
89. Yeah.
00.
28.
yes.
653
89
0028.
Yes, let me just forward the number on WhatsApp to you so that you can.
Okay, and the name.
Yes.
Send me the number and the name so that I can share with those who are watching.
I forwarded the number.
Yeah, so many persons may want to. They actually would want to engage in entrepreneurship, businesses, and would not know what to do. So you would train them. What particularly are you going to take them through during this summit that is taking place in Ewane?
All right. Now, during the summit, first of all, we are going to be talking about financial education, because I always say money leaves the hands of those who make it and enters into the pockets of those who manage it. At the end of the day, it's not only about making money, but having the ability to manage the money. And that's why they call me the financial evangelist, because financial education is actually one of my domain of expertise, where I actually help people make money, grow their money, and multiply their money. So during the conference, we are not just going to focus on import export, but we are going to be talking about financial education. We are going to be talking about entrepreneurship. Now, I always tell people that I don't train buy and sell arms. I train entrepreneurs, because there's a difference between a buy and sell arm and an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is somebody who thinks differently. An entrepreneur is somebody who actually tries to solve problems in his or her society. Like I always say, the money you're looking for is in the pockets of the person beside you. In fact, it is in the problem of somebody that you have not yet solved. So an entrepreneur is a problem solver. So during the conference, we are going to be talking about entrepreneurship. We are going to be talking about business growth hacks. We are going to be talking about digital marketing, artificial intelligence, importation from China, importation from Turkey, importation from Dubai, and we are also going to be talking about foodstuff exportation. So there are a lot of things that we are going to be talking about. Now, I need to emphasize a little bit more about digital marketing, because a lot of people are really having problems in selling their product. We are there to show you. In fact, during the conference, we are going to be talking about all of these things to actually help you boost your sales. That means 10x your sales, and you yourself, you're going to realize that truly over the years you've been missing out on a lot of things. And I encourage everyone, you're watching us, whether you are in Bamenda, Bafoussam, you are even in the Far North, wherever you are, this Sunday we have to be in Yaoundé at Salle de Fête Saint John at Mendong, after Dove Supermarket and before you get to Hotel Diplo, okay, before Carrefour Jouvence. Take note, Salle de Fête Saint John in Mendong, you can write it down, Salle de Fête Saint John in Mendong, after Supermarché Dove and before Hotel Diplo, okay, before you get to Carrefour Jouvence. That's where we are going to be in Mendong precisely. So this Sunday, 2:30 p.m. start preparing yourself, travel wherever you are. We are going to be live, and it's going to be in fact, it's going to be powerful. So I believe that we are going to, in fact, there are a lot of people that have even gone through our programs, and they testify themselves that yes, they have been transformed thanks to our training. And yeah, so you are going to see live testimonies of people who have gone through the program themselves, and they have actually important.
Can you answer to this? Good evening, Mr. Liu and the business guru in the studio. He said knowledge is power. Is it not more profitable to create industry in Cameroon with this your knowledge, like what the Chinese do by celebrating increase in firms, and Cameroon keep depending on China? Valentine.
All right. Now I have to answer to Valentine. The honest truth is, even the US still depends on China. Even Burkina Faso, that is fast developing now, they still depend on China. Yes, we are looking forward to a time where we can be self-dependent, but we are not yet. We have to be frank with each other. We cannot yet say that we want to build all of those things. We are not at the level where they did not train us in school how to build machines. There are a lot of things that we are still very far behind. And even the US still depends on China. Even the countries in the world that we know that they are actually very, very powerful, let me tell you the truth, majority of them still depends on China. You can do your research. Even the most luxurious brands in the world, they produce their products in China, and they take it back to their country to assemble them and actually put their logos on it. A lot of people don't know that even Apple produce their stuffs in China, and they take it back to California in the US for production. I am not saying that we cannot get to that level, but we are not yet at that level. We have to be frank with each other. I pray that there's going to be a time where yes, other countries can depend on us, but for now we need to do with what we have.
But the focus here also is the fact that many persons want to engage in international
international trade,
and you are there to facilitate,
exactly,
to show them how to do that.
Exactly, we are there to help them, show them, because that one also, it's a way to help even the average Cameroonian who is not having enough capital. You are having 50K, you don't know what to do with it. You are having 100K, you have 200K. Some people even have 5 million francs. They don't even know what kind of business to do with it. You want to get into the international business world, we are going to expand, in fact, open your knowledge, show you how you can actually do, advise you on what you can actually get started with that is going to be profitable. Even if you want to start up your brand, I said I have started my own personal brands, the Vigor X Energy Coffee and the Vigor X Maca Capsule, and we are going to teach you also how you can start up your own brand. Even if you have a company and you want to customize all the product of your, maybe the equipment in your company, we can teach you how to do it and actually get it customized in your brand extremely cheap, direct from the manufacturer.
Okay, so many persons are asking that this mega program that's going to be taking place out there in Yaoundé, what if they cannot make it to Yaoundé? Is there a possibility for them to gain this knowledge otherwise?
All right, those who cannot make it in Yaoundé, we are going to have we have an office in Douala at Nchupichem Credit Union building beside Foku Bonaberi, just at the crossover. We are at the second floor, office number 202. But for now, we are having a mega program in Yaoundé. But you can come to our office maybe the Sunday after this Sunday. Okay, the Sunday after this Sunday, we are going to be having a program there. But we advise that you come for the mega program because there are so many things that we are going to be showing there, which is really going to be much more interesting. So those who cannot make it, you can still come to our office, Nchupichem Credit Union building, Bonaberi, beside Foku, second floor, office number 202, or you will follow me on my Facebook page, Financial Evangelist, and send me DM there, and you are going to probably get a rendezvous. My personal assistant is definitely going to give you a rendezvous.
Okay, but who are those to attend this, mega summit?
Now, all the students watching me out there, all the university students, all those who graduated from the university, all the Bayam Selams, our mothers, our fathers, those who are working, and even those who are retired, everybody can attend this conference. But we want people who are serious minded, people who are entrepreneurial oriented, people who really want to change the narratives. We don't want jokers in the hall. We don't want people who are not ready to change the narratives. And that's why we said that the first 10 people who are going to show that they are very serious, pick up your phone right now and send interested on WhatsApp, SMS, or you call the number that you're seeing below your screen, or 653 890028, 653 890028, or 687 76 1167, 687 76 1167. The first 10 people to send interested, call or send an SMS, they are going to have free access. And during this conference, I have to precise that we are going to be helping some few people actually place their first orders from China. So come prepared, because it may be you, and also the CEO may be giving some scholarship to some few persons. So just come prepared, because you may be the person.
Now, what are these guys going to be buying to sell back here?
Mr. Liu, there are so many products, so many. I'm talking about more than 6 million manufacturers. Now, we give you, in fact, we show you a platform where you can get millions of products. We are going to expose you to platforms of more than 80 million products actually, and you are going to decide on which one you can import. But we advise you on what are the best products that are fast selling to import, because we don't want you to go and buy something which the profit margin is not very high. For those who are not having any business doing yet, we are going to advise you on what to import. But for those who are already having a business and they just want to get access to a manufacturer in China that can supply them those same things very cheap, it is still fine. But if you are out there, you are still wondering, you don't know what to do, then we are going to show you what are the kind of products to import. Now, there are two kinds of products in e-commerce. We have the problem solving product and the passion product. Now, the problem solving products, just as the name says, are products that are there to solve a particular problem. Like, for example, I got into the coffee product that helps men for sexual weakness, so I focus on the problem solving part. You can decide to get into the passion product. For example, the watch I'm wearing, I did not buy it because they told me that it helps to cure hepatitis or whatsoever thing. I bought it because I saw it, I love it, and I bought it. So we are going to be explaining these two particular product sectors, and you decide which one you can sell most, and we are still going to advise you on products that you can actually sell out very fast. There are products that have sold more than 20,000 pieces of them, which I'm going to be exposing during the conference, and you yourself, you can actually get started in that same domain. So don't miss out on this program this Sunday 2:30 p.m. in Yaoundé. Is really going to be interesting.
Okay, somebody is writing from Rwanda. He says how does he benefit from what you offer?
All right, those who are from Rwanda or out of the country, they can add +237 on the number that we gave. Okay, +237 and then the number. Just send a WhatsApp SMS. We are going to have a live conference with them. We are going to organize a Google Meet session. So if you're out of the country and you cannot actually make it for the program, just dial +237 653 890028 or +237 the second number. Okay, send us a message on WhatsApp, tell us where you are, and we are going to organize a live meeting with you on Google Meet, okay, and explain everything to you and have a program with you. And on that day also, we are going to have a live session on our Facebook page, so people may want to connect on my Facebook page, Financial Evangelist. You're going to see a blue tick, about 12,000 followers. You can follow, like the page, so that you can get updates on the program.
This person says he's writing from Muyuka. He may not be able to make it to Yaoundé, but just write to the number. He's going to arrange something. But some people are also very scared. He says, how do we differentiate you guys from these scammers? I've had a very bitter experience with persons I thought were very genuine, and it's difficult.
Yeah.
But are you asking anybody to give you money?
Now, the first thing first is that we are like a school. We are an institute. If you hear the name Global Import Mastery Institute, we don't import from you. We don't take money from you to import for you. Okay, it is a training center where we train you on how to do things for yourself. So you don't come to us giving us money to multiply the money or import for you or do something for you. We train you. It is like you go to school, you say you want to learn marketing, and then you sit down and you learn marketing. But now the difference with us is that it is a digital institute, though we have physical offices and workers and even registered by the government.
Because he says, the person says, as soon as you send your money to invest online to a company for a product, you won't hear from them. Because what is the difference with what you
now this is not investment. I want to precise again. It is real products that you are buying and seeing. Now we are going to introduce you to what they call trade assurance. Trade assurance is a platform that when you buy your product with our training, when you send money, the manufacturer does not even receive that money. The money is being frozen in an account until when the manufacturer sends your product to the agents that we are going to recommend, which are very reliable, having offices in almost every town in Cameroon. When they send the products to the agent notifies that he has received the product. Then trade assurance is going to unfroze the money, is going to release the money, and the manufacturer now receives the money. So it's not like a mobile money system in Cameroon whereby you buy something from somebody in Yaoundé, immediately do a payment, the person receives it, and he can decide not to send to you again. So if you follow our strategy, you are not going to get scammed. And I want to precise, please, it is not investment. You will not give Global Import Master. If somebody contacts you that is Global Import Master Institute and tells you to give 100,000, they'll multiply to what? 200,000. It is not us. We train you. That means you pay a fee to be trained. It is an institute, okay, but well registered, and also we have physical offices where you can come and see us. Even in Bamenda, we have an office in Bamenda at T Junction Express Union Building. We have a very big branch there where people can still go there. So it's not a scam.
So the essence here is you go to school to learn how to export and import.
Yes.
What it takes, the strategies.
Exactly. And not only how to import, export, also digital marketing, how to use Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, WhatsApp to generate sales automated. And also artificial intelligence, how you can automate your business using AI, which a lot of people are still actually ignoring the power of artificial intelligence.
Okay, tomorrow again we're going to be talking about this, but can you detail tell us how when, where, and how the mega stuff is going to take place?
So the conference is going to be this Sunday, the 8th of June, 2025, at Salle de Fête Saint John in Mendong, Yaoundé, after Supermarché Dove, just before Hotel Diplo, before Carrefour Jouvence. We are going to be there 2:30 p.m. I said the conference is 10,000 francs, but if you are among the first 10 people to contact the number below your screen or the number 653 890028 or 687-761167. If you are among the first 10 people, you are going to get free access for the conference this Sunday, 2:30 p.m. And I said we have an office at Douala Bonaberi at Tarinkon Credit Union building beside Foku, second floor, office number 202.
Okay, so the good news is that there is so much money in importing and exporting for business purposes, and what is keeping us behind is the fact that we are ignorant. We perish because we lack knowledge. So just go and learn what it takes to export what you want to sell and import what you also want to sell back home, especially from China. He says he buys them very cheap there and makes a good profit back here. So why not go and learn and see how you can put this money that you are wasting in bars, in snacks, and in yes, in so many things, unnecessary things. Put them into
foods,
in food, and put them into use, and also sharpen your brain. So many persons are also saying that they expected you to talk about the importation of big machines, but even if you have to
talk about that tomorrow.
Even if you have to import big machines, you need to learn what it takes to import these big machines, and you start from somewhere. You start building capital to the point where you can now acquire these big machines to engage in industries back here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir. See you guys tomorrow.
Okay, and thank you all for watching. Tomorrow we're going to discuss this and other details on how to import and export our food stuff for our profitability. Thank you to the production team and to all of you for watching. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.
I want to introduce to you somebody. He is a young, talented, and an award-winning entrepreneur. He won his latest award in 2023, and he won the award as the best trainer employee. And he has been winning so many laurels. He is a mentor, he is a coach, and he has coached over 1,000 entrepreneurs and more. He's an international coach. He's a mentor both in Cameroon and beyond, and he has made significant progress in his life, and he is a CEO and the founder of Suwestex International. Not only that, he is a public speaker by excellence. Not only that, he is a marketer, and equally he is somebody who has won the heart of so many persons, because he don't just only speak, he does and means what he says. He's equally the CEO and the founder of Global Import Mastery Institute. At this moment, some of you know him, but you have not yet seen him. He is a person that's going to be speaking to us at this moment. I want you to rise up with a standing ovation. Let's welcome the financial evangelist. Make some noise in the person of Mr. Nico Simon. You can do better. You can do better. Look at a gentleman. Look at a professional. A marketer by excellence. A public speaker by excellence. He's here to take you to different heights. Only entrance. I can feel the entrance that this is not going to be a normal event.